Most of the stuff y'all consume is Black American culture. Most of the stuff y'all see, hear, listen to, wanna wear is Black American culture. Yet y'all give white people your flowers for what? What y'all giving white people your flowers for? Like, I really don't understand it. Next time y'all say, I love the 90s style, I love the Y2K style, I love baggy clothes, Black American style. That's Black American culture. Next time y'all say, I love rock music, and y'all think of Elvis Presley. Rock music didn't start with Elvis Presley. Rock music started with Black Americans. Country music started with Black Americans. House music started with Black Americans. Techno is Black music. Hip-hop is Black music. R&B is Black music. Blues, jazz, gospel is Black music. Everything that y'all consume, most of the stuff is Black music. People dress like Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish is dressed like TLC, Da Brat, and MC Lyte. But y'all don't know who that is, so the conversation doesn't even make sense. You know, like, I'm so sick and tired of people thinking Black Americans don't have culture when they are the culture. Y'all love the gift and not the giver. Y'all love everything that Black people produce, but y'all don't like Black people. Y'all love everything that Black people give you, but you don't respect Black people. Y'all love everything that Black people... It only exists because of Black people. You only exist because of Black people. If it wasn't for a Black woman, y'all wouldn't even be here. Yet y'all want to hate on Black women. All of that shit don't make sense to me, bro.
Every time I hear somebody say that Black Americans have no culture, I think, come on now. How can you tell us we don't have culture while using our slang to do so, while wearing outfits that were inspired by us, while listening to our music in your headphones, and looking at our movies when you go back home? All right, y'all. Peace. See you next time. Every time I hear somebody say that Black Americans have no culture, I think,
you're the reason why people keep on asking this question, because you don't even know how to answer this question. When asked what is Black American culture, you need to actually show Black American culture, you know, like they do in Louisiana, for example. They have actual Black American culture, but you coming out here showing a plate of food and some dude with a radio. What does that have to do with anything? Let's go with the plate. On your plate you have collard greens. Africans also have collard greens. It is cooked the exact same way. In Congo, for example, we call it ndunda. Same thing. And on top of that, you have the audacity to show mac and cheese. Mac and cheese. Two of the most European creations ever. I remember one time I saw a guy who said, oh, mac and cheese is in Black American creation. Listen. Y'all need to be serious. Okay, when you start talking about things like this, you need to be serious. This is why people look at you funny, because you're saying things that don't make sense. A guy said mac and cheese is a Black American creation. He said some dude named Hemming, I think Hemming, created it. No, he did not create it. Maybe he helped popularize it. I don't know, but he did not create it. Mac and cheese. Listen. Cheese is probably one of the most French thing that you will find out here. Cheese. And don't even get me started on mac. That's literally short for macaroni. That's an Italian word, okay? So how come a French thing and an Italian thing is part of your culture? This is the reason why people keep on asking y'all these stupid questions, because you don't even know how to answer it. Answer the question properly and people will leave it alone. I don't even see the reason to talk about the other thing, because that's just a Black man with a radio. I understand what it symbolizes is hip-hop, I get it, but that man is wearing a Kango, okay? That's literally a company owned by a white man.
Alright guys, welcome back to Hosting Stories KE. I hope you're doing very great whenever you are watching this video from. I hope your weekend was super amazing. Now, over the weekend I saw a very interesting topic, a very overheated discussion about people saying on TikTok that Black Americans have no culture at all. They are even researching articles, writing down articles to prove, even compiling clips to prove that Black Americans have no culture. Some of them even are going to podcast to discuss that Black Americans, totally, they have no culture. But in this video, I want us to do something very different because I'm a very, very Black American fan. I want us to prove these people wrong. Why? First of all, they are saying Black Americans have no culture. But let's now define the word culture. Here it is. So culture is basically the shared way of life of a group of people. It is the mix of traditions, beliefs, art, food, music, language, values, and everyday practice that give the group its identity. Think of it this way. What does people create? Yeah? People create music, fashion, food, art, and stories. What does people believe in? People believe in religion, values, custom, and spirituality. How people live together? People live together through language, family, tradition, social rituals, and celebration slash ceremonies. Yeah? So it is not frozen in time either. Culture is always evolving, borrowing, and remixing. That's why saying that Black Americans lack no culture or Black American have no culture is wrong, because culture does just not mean ancient tradition. It includes the innovations, styles, and movement shaping today. But hey, I'm not a Black American, so I'm going to allow Black Americans in this video to tell us or prove us wrong that indeed that person that is saying that Black Americans have no culture is totally wrong. And then at the end of this video, we'll be discussing on the same topic. In the meantime, subscribe and let's watch this video together.
So many times I come on the internet and I find somebody claiming, especially someone of African descent, that Black Americans don't have a culture. And that is the most mind-boggling, stupid thing I have ever come across. Because I'm like, let's go back to the 2000s when we were wearing baggy jeans in Africa. We were on bandanas. We were doing the short, near-long hairstyles. We were doing Beyonce. We would go to the salons and be like, oh, I want a hair like that. It's Kelly Rowland's face. And you look like me, but you want a Kelly Rowland? You sit there and they do that, you know. And then we were on bandanas. We were on baggy jeans. We were on the the crop tops, and half of your stomach is, the cutouts. Like, what do you mean? And then the swag walk among the brothers, when those brothers used to tie those bandanas, they have baggy jeans and then they are bouncing. What the f was that? Was that culture from your village? See, when we talk about culture, we are not talking about anything else than just the way of life. Black Americans have made the N-word cool. You can use that in Africa with your friends because they've made it so cool that it doesn't seem derogatory anymore. People are so fast to claim, reggae, raga, dreadlocks are from the Caribbean people. But then we come down here and there is hip hop, but we don't acknowledge that as a culture. It's giving haterism. Black Americans have influenced cultures in Asia. There is what we call K-pop, which is literally everything black, in streetwear, in everything black. I'm like, y'all are crazy out here to claim. Okay, so someone said, oh, what is the taboo? What taboo do you guys have? What kind of a taboo is in the community where Black Americans live in for them to adapt to? One thing you all forget is that Black Americans had to adapt to the communities, to the surroundings around them. They were not like the Caribbean people who were grouped on their own and left to figure out and develop their own culture from whatever was left from the African culture. But the black Americans have had to coexist with their white counterparts. That means there is a lot of influence still from the mainstream white culture into the black culture. But amidst all that, they have stood out. We still have, when you're talking about the black American culture, you cannot forget hip hop, you cannot forget the baggy jeans, we cannot forget their language. When a black American speaks, you can't confuse that language with any other language in the world. Just like when someone speaks patois, you cannot confuse that language with any other language in the world. You know that's coming from the Caribbean. You know this is coming from a black person in America. So when you talk about this whole black Americans don't have a culture, are you stupid? Someone needs to invite me on a podcast because I need to be teaching people a bit of history and less of stereotypes, okay? Peace.
Okay, so y'all seen the video of that man passionately talking about how Black Americans had no culture. I think I have something clicked in my mind regarding why the rest of the diaspora keeps saying that we as Black Americans have no culture when we as Black Americans clearly can see what our culture is. It's very confusing for us. And I think that part of the issue is that we do not have an immigrant story as Black Americans. Black Americans are not immigrants. Black Americans are Americans. We literally were here before America was America. We were here at the inception of this country. We are Americans, period, point blank, period. But every other part of the diaspora has an immigrant story. They definitely have one when they come to America. So if you are from outside the America and you are a black person that you come from outside America, African or Caribbean, or even like a black Brit who has an immigrant story to the UK, there is a term called cultural fossilization. It's something that I've heard immigrants, not just from the diaspora, but also Latino immigrants describe, that I never connected it to why people say Black Americans don't have culture until today. Cultural fossilization is when, let's say, your parents immigrated to America from Nigeria in the 80s. Okay? Whenever they did that, their culture was kind of frozen in time. So whatever culture they had in Nigeria when they came to America, they maintained that culture, and they maintain that culture with all the other people that are around them, all the Nigerians that are around them. So their culture is like solidified, and they pass that on to their children, and that's the culture. Meanwhile, back home in Nigeria, the culture is evolving, just like Black American culture is evolving. So your culture kind of gets concentrated. If you come from another place and you come to America, your culture from back home kind of gets concentrated into this one solidified culture. It doesn't evolve. It just stays frozen. That's why they call it cultural fossilization. And I've heard Latinos say this as well. Like they would have this culture, and when they go back home, they speak in ways, the slang is different, everything's different, and people are looking at them like, why are you talking like it's 1985? That's the year their parents immigrated here. So their culture stays the same. And the reason why they say that Black Americans have no culture is because our culture evolves like any culture would. Our slang evolves, our style of dress, our, music, our hairstyles, just the way that we are, our thoughts, our feelings, the way that we move, it changes because cultures evolve as time goes on. But if you came from another place, your culture didn't evolve. It stayed frozen in time, in the time that you came here. So that, I think that's part of the reason why they say Black Americans have no culture, because their culture is like put in glass, and they do the same cultural norms that they did 40 years ago. They continue that, and they think that like, you know immortalization of that time and of their culture is culture. They don't see it as the evolving of a group. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think that's also very unfortunate, because you're seeing that you don't have the evolution of your culture. Your kids come here, and then by the second, third generation, they start to take on the characteristics and mannerisms of Black Americans because our culture stays evolving and you don't like it. So then you lash out at us. That's just my perspective. Tell me what you think of cultural fossilization.
I watched the viral clip of that bald headed African dude that was talking to that Haitian lady on his podcast about how Black Americans, we're the only ones, we're the only people that don't have a culture, that don't have any value systems, any traditions, any taboos, blah, blah, blah. And I've watched some different takes on this, but I actually have a little bit of a different take. Okay, so my microphone just went out. But anyways, I have a little bit of a different take because listening to that clip made me realize something about the way that Africans view culture and traditions when it comes to Black people. So the reason why Africans say stuff like Black Americans don't have culture, we don't know who we are, we don't know where we come from, is because our culture in America doesn't center Africa. So what I mean by that is, if you look at like the Caribbean and South America, a lot of their culture and traditions mimic cultures or mimic the things that are done culturally in Africa, in different parts of Africa. So they've taken a lot of that African tradition and incorporated it into their cultures down in the Caribbean and in South America. So that's why they're not going to tell them that they don't know who they are, they don't know where they came from. They're lost. They're not going to say that to them because their culture, a lot of their culture resembles that different cultures in Africa. Whereas in America, as Black Americans, most of our culture, especially not mainstream culture, does not resemble anything African. Our culture does not center Africa. I don't think that Africans can really wrap their head around the idea of a group of Black people who just came up with their own culture that's based off of their own experience and that has absolutely nothing to do with anywhere on the continent of Africa. So in their eyes, it's like, you guys must be lost because you don't center Africa in your culture. You don't center Africa in the things that you do. Nothing that you do resembles African, anything in Africa. Y'all don't resemble. We can't draw any parallels between what you guys are doing in America into Africa. I mean, even if we're just talking about lifestyles, like when you look at Haiti and Nigeria, you're not going to really see too much difference between a city in Haiti and a city in Nigeria. It's still full of scrap metal housing made out of shipping containers. There's extreme poverty in both of those areas, and they really kind of mirror each other in a lot of ways. And even in Jamaica, like certain parts of Jamaica could look similar to somewhere in Ghana or somewhere. So I feel like they have more of like that connection. Like, so I really feel like Africans look at Caribbeans and they see a lot of themselves in the lifestyles of the people there, but they don't see the reflection of themselves in us. And I think that they look at that as like somehow we are lost or we don't have any pride, or because we don't feel connected to Africa. So if we're Black and we don't feel connected to Africa, that means that there's something wrong with us, and that means that we're lost. They say that Black Americans have main character syndrome and we're self-centered, but yet the way that they view culture and the reason why they tell us that we don't know who we are, we don't have a culture, or we don't have traditions, or we don't, we're just lost, is because our culture doesn't resemble theirs. Our culture doesn't center Africa, but somehow we're the main character. But aside from all of that, I don't feel like anybody has the right to tell somebody else that they don't have a culture. You don't have a right to speak on another group of people's lifestyle. Like, you just, and the lady that he was sitting across from, honestly, I just don't think that her elevator goes to the top floor. I don't think that she has the mental bandwidth to engage in a conversation like that. But I feel like a lot of times they pick people like that specifically that they know won't really have no pushback, that don't have the mental capacity to go back and forth with them and actually educate them. Because apparently obviously she did not. She just sat there looking like boo-boo the fool and had no rebuttals at all. So, but anyways, that's my take.
This debate about Black Americans have no culture at all. It's a debate that usually comes from people who don't really understand what Black Americans are contributing in today's world modern culture. Majority of the things that we do, they originated from Black Americans. These Black Americans are the one who came out, who came up with the things that we normally do, the music that we normally listen to, the slang and languages that we normally use, the fashion that we normally embrace. Yeah. So these cultures, talking like Black Americans have no culture, it simply means that you don't understand what these Black Americans are contributing in our modern day today life. Here's why I'm saying this. I wrote this debate, and I was asking myself, what are the contribution of these Black Americans in modern world today? So here's the thing. This debate usually comes from people not recognizing how much modern culture wide world actually comes straight out of Black Americans. So here's what Black Americans are bringing to the table. When we talk about music, we first of all think about Black Americans because of these genes: jazz, blues, gospel, hip hop, R&B, rock and roll all have Black American roots. Hip hop, which is listened to trillions of people in the world, originated from Black Americans. So, you want to still tell us that Black Americans have no culture? Now, what about the dance? Of course, where there is music, people will dance. From breakdancing, stepping, joking to TikTok dance crazes, many come out of Black Americans' creativity. For example, the famous breakdown, they all originated from Black Americans. Of course, let's talk about their language, slang. So, African American Vernacular English, AAVE, shapes mainstream English and internet language today. Like, period. What's up, buddy? Like, all these languages, I personally believe that Black American people are the creators of all this language that we use in the streets nowadays, which is so super amazing. Let's talk about the food. Soul food, collard green, cornbread, fried chicken, gumbo, mac and cheese, deep roots, mac and cheese. The mac and cheese is originally from Black Americans, but I believe mac and cheese, yeah, it is. They all deep roots in Black community. You can tell me what you think, but I've tried to, because I saw one of the creators talking about mac and cheese, so I decided to do a deep research. And it turns out that mac and cheese deep roots in the Black communities. But you do tell me what you think in the comment section. Now let's talk about fashion and style. From Harlem Renaissance suits to sneakers culture, durags, streetwear, all deeply tied to Black identity. Religion and spirituality, Black churches, Black Jesus, Black Bible, gospel choirs, call and response traditions, and resilience through faith, they all originate from Black Americans. Now, storytelling and literature, from oral traditions to writers like Zora, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, they are all Blacks. Film and comedy, think of the Spike Lee, Taylor Perry, yeah, Richard Payron, this a person like Taylor Perry is really shaping the Black community, and all this influence on the huge potential of global Black African culture. You all see that, yeah? Let's talk about everyday lifestyle. Yeah, like everyday life ritual, family reunions, cookouts, Juneteenth, HBCU traditions, homecoming, fraternities, all these, they originate from Black Americans, and they all do this. So when you say that Black Africans have no culture, indeed, that proves you should just shut them down, because it simply means Black American culture is America culture. From the way the world dresses, speaks, eats, dances, and even protests, you can't separate US culture from Black culture. But those are just my diggings. Since I'm not a Black American, but I really I know for a fact that when you talk about culture, we should put in mind that Black Americans are contributing to our culture. But since I'm not Black American, if you are watching this video and you know you're a Black American or African American, tell us in the comments, do you believe that Black Americans have no culture? Or let's prove them wrong in the comment section. Let's have a discussion on the same. And I hope to see you in the next video after subscribing this channel, because it is a very overheated discussion that I believe we will continue discussing in the comment section. See you in the next video, guys. Subscribe this channel for more content like this, and adios.